Okay, we're going to finish up the partial practice test, the context part. I got interrupted and then it just canceled. So we're starting over again. We left off at number 12 and we decided that we were making two equations. The green one represents the square foot equation and the blue one is the money equation. And that's an important thing to recognize when you're doing systems of equations, word problems, is that we're looking for two separate equations. And that helps us when we look at all these numbers, because there are a lot of numbers. So we have the two equations, and now we want to go ahead and combine them. And so we can see that just going ahead and bringing them together isn't going to work right now. So we're going to do a little simplifying. I'm looking at the green equation, and I see that I could divide all of them by 100. And if I did that, I would reduce 300L by 100. So 300L divided by 100 is 3L. That's much better than 300. And 700M divided by 100 is 7M. And then 6400 divided by 100 is 64. And so now what I'm looking at is I'm looking at these two equations here. And I'm seeing how can I combine them so that something cancels out, so that something gets eliminated. And I look and I realize, nope, nothing's going to get eliminated yet. So now I have to do how I teach something called Make-A-Wish. And I have to look at this equation and go, oh, I really, really wish that instead of a 3L, this was right here, this was a negative 12L. Because if it were a negative 12L, then the L's would cancel out. And so then, after I make my wish, I ask myself, how can I make my wish come true? What can I multiply 3L by to make it into a negative 12L? And I think, oh, I got to multiply it by negative 4. And so I go ahead and do that. 3L times negative 4 is negative 12L. And I know I'm not allowed to do this unless I multiply every term in this equation by negative 4. So 7M times negative 4 is negative 28M. And 64 times negative 4, I do not have a calculator, so let's see, 4 times 4 is 16. Carry the 1, it's 256, but that's a negative. And so I've rewritten it, and now I'm going to go ahead and bring down the other equation. I know it gets confusing, we have so many equations, but here are two equations. And I'm going to add them together. So negative 12L plus 12L, gone, eliminated. Negative 28M plus 25M, that's going to be a negative 3M. And then negative 256 plus 235, let's see, 6 minus 5 is 1. 13 minus 5 is 8, so that's going to be 81, yes. And so, oops, negative 81, anybody? Yep, that's going to be a negative. Is that going to make sense? Let's see, did I do that wrong? Wish I had a calculator. Can you guys do it for me? Let's see, I would do 6 minus 5 is 1. 5 minus 3 is 2. Silly. Okay, there we go. Negative 21. I didn't think that sounded right. And so now I'm going to go ahead and solve for m and divide both sides by negative 3. And I'll get that m is equal to 7. What does that even mean? What does m stand for? Well, m are the workers that work for Max Mowing Company. So we know we have 7 workers. And now we have to figure out, well, how many workers do we have that work for Lexi's company. And so I can use, I know this sounds crazy, but I can use any of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 equations that I have up here. I can plug m into any of them and solve for L. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, let's see, I'm going to take m equals 7, and when I'm going to use this equation right here, this green one, I'm going to plug in, when I see m, I'm going to plug in 7, and so I'll get 3L plus 7, and plug in, instead of m, I'm going to plug in a 7, equals 64. So we get 3L plus 49 equals 64. So 3L equals, what's that going to be, 15? Oh, I'm really having to use the calculator in my brain right now. So L equals 5. What does that mean? 5 workers for Lexi's company and 7 workers for Max's company. And we can leave the answer like this. We don't want to put it as a coordinate point because I'm not sure that would make sense. You could even take the time to write out what the M means. You could write out, you could say number of workers in Max's company, et cetera, et cetera. You could do the same thing for Lexi's company. All right, so the next context, and these are not easy, but really it's pretty methodical. And so if you practice, 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 I know you can get this section. You're planning a 7-day trip to California. You estimate that, now I'm turning my page just to make sure I've got this. Okay, you estimate that will cost $300 per day in San Diego and $400 per day in Anaheim. Your total budget for the trip is $2,400. How many days should you spend in each city? So this is a little bit different than what we've been seeing, and it's always good to try something new. So you're planning a 7-day trip. You're going to have time in San Diego, and you're going to have time in Anaheim. And so do you know how many days you're going to spend in San Diego? No. So I'm going to put S. Do you know how many days you're going to spend in Anaheim? Nope. So I'm going to put A. But you do know that altogether you're planning a 7-day trip. So the number of days you spend in San Diego plus the number of days in Anaheim is going to equal 7 days. There's one of our equations. Now let's look at the money to make our second equation. It's going to be $300 per day in San Diego. So that 300 goes with the S. And it's going to cost $400 per day in Anaheim. So that $400 goes with the A. And the total trip is $2,400. Okay, so we've got our 2 equations. We have our system of equations. And we want something to eliminate. So I'm looking at it now. If I added or subtracted these 2 equations together, nothing would eliminate. But wouldn't it be nice, I'm going to pick on A, wouldn't it be nice if instead of an A right here, this was a negative 400A? So I'm going to make a wish. I wish that that A was a negative 400A. And I'm going to make my wish come true by multiplying by negative 400. And so here I go. I'm going to rewrite the whole thing. I'm going to multiply S times 400, which gives me negative 400S. I'm going to multiply A times negative 400, which gives me negative 400A. And I'm going to multiply 7 times negative 400, which gives me negative 2,800. I could have used 400 to multiply and then subtracted the 2 equations, but it's been my experience that students make some mistakes when they're subtracting. This is kind of a more foolproof way to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and add, and I get 300S plus negative 400S. That's a negative 100S. 400A minus 400A, slam, just eliminated. Bring down the equal. 2,400 minus 2,800 is negative 400. And I'm going to go ahead and solve for S by dividing both sides by negative 100. So I get S is equal to 4. What does S equal? S equals the number of days that we're going to be spending in San Diego. 4 days in San Diego. Since it's a 7-day trip, I know that we'll be spending 3 days in Anaheim. Since, I could say A equals 3, either way. Since together, I'm spending 7 days in both cities. Awesome. All right, let's look at the next one. Miss Overby is stocking up on markers and wipes. The markers that she buys are $5 a pair, and the wipes are $4.50 a pair. She ends up spending $72.50 on markers and wipes. She buys twice as many markers as wipes, and how many of each did she buy? Okay, truth be told, I do not buy my markers. I do buy my wipes, however. The school district or the school pays for our markers that you guys use. Then I go to Target and buy the washcloths. Okay, so there are 2 equations here. The first one has to do with money, right? I see a $5, and that goes with markers. So I've got $5 for every marker I buy. And then the wipes are $4.50 a pair. So I buy markers and I buy wipes that cost $4.50. And then altogether, I spent in this problem $72.50. So that's one equation down. Now the second equation is a little confusing, and so I hope to help you to understand this. She buys twice as many markers as whites. So the way I teach this in class, I say, wonder if it said she buys the same amount of markers as whites. I could just say, okay, markers equals whites, right? Because that would be my next equation if it were the same. But it's not the same. It's twice. She buys twice as many markers as whites. So what does she buy more of? What do I buy more of? I buy more markers, okay? So when we think about it, markers, when we know how many markers I buy, it's going to be a bigger number than whites. So how do I make them equal? I have to put a 2 because twice I'm going to be multiplying something by 2. But if I put it here, that's going to mean I just made markers even bigger. It doesn't go there. It goes here. To make markers, the number of markers I buy equal to the number of wipes I buy, I have to multiply wipes by 2 because the amount of markers I buy is twice as much as the amount of wipes I buy. All right, I hope that helps because most people want to put the 2 in front of the M, and that is just not going to work. All right, this is a great, fun equation because this time we're going to use substitution to solve and not systems. So I'm going to look and I see, oh, this is great, right? M equals 2W. When I have something equals something else, I'm just going to use substitution. I'm going to say, well, when I see M over here, instead of writing M, I'm going to plug in 2W because it says M is the same as 2W. M equals 2W. So here I go. Maybe I'll write it in red. So I see a 5, I'll write a 5. I see an M, I'm going to plug in 2W. And I'm going to rewrite the rest of the equation. And so when I do that, I'm going to go ahead and simplify. I'll have what? 10W plus 4.5W equals 7250. And then I'm going to go ahead and combine the like terms. So I'll have 1450W equals 72.5. And I will divide both sides by 1450 and hope that it goes in equally. So let's think about this. How many times is 14.5 going to go into? How about 5? I think that's going to do it. What does W even stand for? It stands for the number of wipes. So I only bought 5 wipes. That's really not going to help us, is it? I guess I'm replacing some wipes. And now I need to figure out, well, how many markers do I buy? Well, I'm going to use this equation right here. And since I know that I'm buying 5 wipes, I plug the 5 in for W, and I get M equals 2 times 5. Just like they said, M is going to equal 10. So the amount of markers I buy is twice as much as the amount of wipes that I buy. Not too many markers and not too many wipes. I guess, well, those were some expensive markers and wipes. I spent $72.50 on 5 washcloths and 10 markers. I think I got ripped off. All right. Is that it? Oh, there's one more, a rectangular lot, and I do not see it. What happened to it? Okay, well, you guys have it on your sheet. We've got a rectangular lot, and we've got a house sitting here, and we've got side X, and so those are my 2 widths, and I've got a Y. And basically, we're going to put a fence on the 3 sides because we certainly don't need a fence right against the house, but we do need a fence on the 2 widths and the length in the back. And so it says the perimeter of the 3 sides is 270, which is great because that means my 2 widths, my x plus my length is equal to 270 feet. So there you go. We've got our first equation. We will want to simplify it. Instead of x plus x, we can rewrite that as 2x plus y equals 270. Okay, so one equation down, one to go. And if you look at your sheet, it also says that, let's see, the owner's going to put up gray fencing along the 2 widths. That costs $30 per linear foot. Okay, so that means that it's going to be 30x. The cost for this side is going to be 30x. The cost for this side is going to be 30x. And then for the length, The length is going to be what, $15? Oh, white fencing must be less expensive than gray because it's only $15 per foot. So the cost of this length is going to be 15y. So if we put the cost all together, we've got the cost of the two widths. One width is going to be 30x, the other width is going to be 30x, and we've got our length is 15y. These are all dollar amounts. Of course, we don't put the dollar sign in the equation, but altogether, the word problem says it cost $5,100. So we'll put the 5,100. All right, let's simplify this one. We'll have 30x plus 30x, which is 60x, plus 15y equals 5,100. Okay, so there are lots of equations here, and we want to put a rectangle around the ones we're going to use. This is the equation from the perimeter equation that we had, and this is our dollar equation. So these are the two equations we're going to use. So when we look at them, nothing's going to cancel out, but when I look at them, I can tell, here, I'm going to rewrite them so we can see them right next to each other. Okay, so I can tell nothing's going to cancel out, but you know what? I'm going to make a wish. And I wish that instead of this being a y, I wish it were a negative 15y. And now I have the power to make my wish come true. Very seldom can we make a wish and then have the power to make it come true. But solving systems, we've got it. It's very empowering. So here we go. If we want to make that y equal to a negative 15y, we're just going to multiply it by negative 15. That means, though, that not only the y gets turned into, gets multiplied by negative 15, but so does every single term in this equation. That's the only reason why we're allowed to do it. It's only legal if all the terms get the same treatment in an equation. So here we go. 2x times negative 15 is negative 30x, and y times negative 15 is negative 15y. I think that was a 60. Okay. And then 270 times negative 15. All right, by this time I found my paper. So that gives me negative 4050, negative 4050. And now we're going to use these two equations, and we're going to add. Here we go. 60x plus negative 30x is 30x. And then we're going to have 15y minus 15y gone, eliminated. We're going to bring down the equal sign, and we have 5,100 minus 4,050, and that gives us 1,050. And now we're going to divide both sides by 30, and so we get x equals 35. So that means the two sides of the yard, the widths of the yard, are both 35 feet in length. And then what we're going to do to find the length is we're going to take this, we're going to plug it into any of the equations that we see. But I'm going to pick the easy equation. I'm going to pick this one, the 2x plus y, our perimeter equation. I'm going to plug 35 in when I see x, and I'm going to solve for y. So I get that 2 times 35 is 70, and I'm going to subtract 70 from both sides, and I will get that y equals 200. So there we go. We've got our two answers. The widths are equal to 35, and the length is 200. And I just want to make sure that you congratulate yourself for making it through this packet. The context problems are not easy, and you should feel proud of yourself if you're really working through these and getting them right, or even working through them and not getting them right, but learning from your mistakes. I really hope that as many of you as possible can challenge yourself to get this context section right on the test. All right, thanks for joining me. I'll see you in class.